The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning. Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Matthew Darius. I'm the Professional Development Coordinator here at ASBO, and I'll be moderating today's call. Before we get into our content, I just want to point out a few things about the session today. There's a few ways to ask questions of our presenter. The first way is to use the chat window, which is on your GoToWebinar control panel there on your screen. Go ahead and type your question into there. I'll be monitoring that, and I'll make sure to break in and get an answer for you. The second way is to use the questions window on your GoToWebinar control panel. You can type in your question there, and we'll get a response for you again from the presenter. And the third way is to ask a question right over the phone. Now, to do that, it's a little more complicated. You have to have typed in your audio pin into your phone. You can locate that on your audio panel, on your GoToWebinar control panel. There will be instructions right on there to type in the pin. It is unique for every person, so I can't tell you what that is. If you want to ask a question over the phone, go ahead and make sure you have that pin typed in. And then also on your GoToWebinar control panel, there will be a little circle with a hand in it. It's called Raise Your Hand. If you do that, that'll notify me you have a question you want to ask of our presenter. I'll break in and unmute you, and you'll be able to ask a question. If you have any other questions about how to use GoToWebinar or anything else, please feel free to use the question or the chat window, and I'll be able to respond to you. With that out of the way, I'm going to turn it over to Deborah Cunningham.
Good morning, everybody. It's really a pleasure for me to welcome you to today's webinar. I am Deborah Cunningham, Director of Education and Research at New York State ASBO. And in this SED webinar, Educational Management Services staff will discuss budget requirements and updates, including errors to avoid and ways to maximize the accuracy of your information. Why is this important? Your boards, instructional staff and leadership, and general public count on you to have up-to-date and accurate information. This conversation with SED staff today is critical to ensuring that the information that you provide and which the public is eagerly awaiting is accurate, consistent with law and guidance, and maximizes the district's ability to use public resources for the benefit of students. Our presenters today are uniquely qualified to lead this conversation. Greg Diefenbach has been with Management Services for a little over a year as an associate in school financial aid. He's worked in the field of educational management services for 22 years, including serving as a school business administrator, a treasurer, and a purchasing agent in a number of upstate school districts, serving as a state aid planning specialist at Questar 3 BOCES, and performing the role of interim school business official in various school districts. He also has experience as an internal auditor and claims auditor for approximately 30 school districts, so he did that for a year and a half. Our second presenter is Dr. Christina Coughlin, who has served as coordinator of educational management services since February 2013. Before that, she worked since 2001 as a budget examiner in the school aid section of the New York State Division of the Budget, and she's held graduate internships with then chairman of the Assembly Education Committee, Steve Sanders, and with State Education Department's Fiscal Analysis and Research Unit. I'd like to remind you to ask your questions as they come up. A lot of the information that you're going to see today is highly detailed and technical, and so if you have a question, bring it up. That will make it more meaningful for everyone, I believe. So without further ado, Christina and Greg, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you all very much for tuning in today. It's a pleasure being able to give this presentation to you here from the State Education Department in cold downtown Albany. I hope it's warm where you are. Of course, I'm sure it's not, but everybody hopefully keep warm. And it's also a pleasure working closely in conjunction with the New York State ASBO in these informational series. So I'm going to move right ahead. I always use the word it's a skating tour because there's a lot here. We can probably take each section and probably embellish on it quite a bit. So we'll do a little skating tour, but certainly, as was mentioned to you, feel free to always ask questions. So we're going to go to the Yeah, as you already know, the information in front of you now is today. We're the presenters. What I point out to you basically is one thing on this particular page, and I'll talk a little bit more about it. The website you'll see there, www.p.p12. Take a look at it. If you haven't looked at our website in a while, I think you really should take a look. We've been doing our best to keep it up to date with most important information that's available. We have new sections in there, an FAQ section. We have guidance. There's a lot of new things. There's a lot of quick shortcuts in there that you can get to, education law, etc. So one thing I do want to strongly point out is go to our website, and that way you can keep up to date as well with what we're doing here at the Education Management Services. Okay, I'm going to try to do this the right way here. The agenda, like I said, it's a skating tour. This is kind of what we're going to go through here. We want to go over the budget deadlines, the CPI, leading on down through things that you need to know right now that's going on. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the budget process, monitoring, and then we'll come up with some how you can avoid some costly errors. And I'll talk about that. It's not actually in print. We can get that out to you. The reason why I haven't put that into print is because I've been getting a lot of input from the field on that, so I want to put a shout out to a lot of people who have been able to help me on that, but we'll get to that shortly. First thing I'd like to talk about is the budget deadlines. So we have it laid out for you right now. You should also put together, and I know there are various ones available to you, your budget development calendars and whatnot. These are the key deadlines that you need to be aware of for the school budget. The administrative salary disclosure statement, property tax report card, and the school budget revote if that has to come to be. This is something that I'm sure everybody's been waiting to see, and you probably have already heard about it, but now SED, we produce this here in Ed Management Services, so you can go forward with the idea or with the concept that the CPI is 1.62, and when you do your administrative salary threshold, the amount there is $130,000 for you. And we just want to show you what we utilize to come up with the numbers that you're going to be using as you go forward. This is some historical data as well that we thought it's important so you can see historically how the data has run regarding the CPI. Now, the budget notice. Basically, it is done. We'll be putting it up on the site very shortly. This is what it looks like. You'll see really no changes this year to the document itself nor the guidance. The only thing that's going to change is on the actual form that you're looking at, and the guidance is some guidance information. And then they basically play together with the property tax report card and the budget notice because they're very similar in scope. I'm going to get a little more detail when we get to the property tax report card, but the guidance pieces that you're going to see written on here has to do with the library, how you put the library exemptions in there, exclusions rather, and also some mathematical things that came up last year. So I just want to show you this is going to be up and running very shortly. But again, no real changes. The only changes, again, you'll see in there is in guidance. The boxes, everything else will remain the same. This is just the first page of the guidance document. You, again, go onto our website. Like I said, keep close tabs on our website because all this information will be up there very, very shortly. Okay, so let's talk about the property tax report card a little bit now, okay? Again, like similar to the budget notice, what you're going to see, and I think I went too fast. No, I didn't. Okay. I think what you're going to see here is that there's no real changes to the report card, but there's going to be some guidance changes. And let me talk about some of the things as far as guidance goes. And give me a second here just to get through some sheets here. These are the areas where you're going to see some changes, okay? The biggest changes that you're going to see here is going to be, I should say changes, the things we want to bring to your attention is that regarding the mathematical equations for how you come to the tax levy limit is going to be addressed, and some guidance on library. So I'm going to go right to the next page. So last year, when we finished looking at all and did an analysis at the end of the tax cap collection period, we found some errors, and we wound up having to talk to probably around, at least 100 school districts. And what was happening is that people were finding it difficult to understand that, and this shows you where the biggest errors were. When it comes down to doing the mathematical pieces, in this particular instance, they should have been using the total tax levy limit before adjustments in the area where they had 42 million. So what they were doing is they were carrying the number from above, but you had to take the number right above that is where the math is. And actually there, at the end of it, it should be, if you will, a 0. The other issue is regarding the school library budgets. When they put in there for the school library, you have to keep in mind that's if you have debt service with the library. Do not put in the library budget. Like if you're going to be, if the school district actually collects the library taxes, that's not what you put in there. The only thing you would put in there is if the district, is carrying library debt. So that was causing some problems with the calculations as well. So that's something we want to bring to your attention. Pay careful attention to that. But there'll be guidance this year. It's different. It'll actually have the mathematical equations on there for you, and we'll have a little bit more about the school library. So hopefully that'll help out. As always, you can always call us up if you have any questions. Like I said, we're already starting to get some questions. We're here to help you out as best we can, so feel free to ask those questions.
Greg, I have a question. This is Deborah.
Sure.
So for the library capital debt, are you saying that would be part of the capital exclusion or not?
The library debt would be. In other words, if you see right here, it says the total proposed school library, including library levy, school library debt. People were putting in there the entire library, if you will, tax levy.
So the library capital levy goes into the exclusion, but other library levy does not.
Correct. Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you. Okay. Like I said, we're going to bounce around a couple of things. We can always come back. We talked a little bit before about the actual website that we have, our management homepage. And this is one of the new things we put up there for you all that we hope, and we hope that over time this is going to expand. The creation of the FAQ, if you will, came as a result of questions we've been asked by you, the field. And what we do is, in working with you, trying to find out these answers, once we find them out, we say, well, let's share them with the rest of the field. So anytime questions come up, we're going to answer them. Not all cases, but in many cases we will, and put them out there. So if a question does arise in your school district, maybe you can come right to the site and find the answer right away without having doing too much research. Of course, you can always call us, but I just want to let you know what the basis of this particular section was. One of the first things, and I'll go back again, booster clubs. This happened to be a question that was asked by a school district, and we went and did the research, so now you have an answer, booster clubs. The question was, do fundraising regulations apply to booster clubs in a district? And in doing the research in a commissioner's decision, it was shown that the booster club conducts its own fundraising and activity, so it's separate. Something a lot of us do know, but sometimes it's something that you want to make sure and validate, so if a question's ever asked, you have that right there for you. Another question that came up, and it had to do with the extra classroom activities manual that we have on the on our website too, had to do with school proms. And the school proms, the question was, are they a taxable event? And then we go on to basically explain the prom is a taxable event and the rationale why. Pre-K students, this came up We also, if you look, again, something new on our homepage website is the health services. So when you basically have non-resident students coming into your school district and they're being given health services by yourselves to a private school, the question came up regarding pre-K. And of course, some of the things we're going to put in here, the law sometimes is gray, and so therefore, in this particular case, we're making a point that being it's somewhat gray, it just calls more and more for the fact that you should be working with the other districts on a contract basis. So this is a good point right here where it's best if you lay out what you want to do originally with both school districts so that there's nothing that's going to come up later on so it causes any sort of problems. Okay, also in the FAQ, and now we'll talk a little bit about the tax cap. These are questions that came up, and this has to do with must a budgetary appropriation be expensed within the same fiscal year? And in this particular case, they want to do a transfer to capital, and of course, we were very clear on that to our answer of what you can and can't do as far as moving money and holding it at bay in the capital fund. So I'm not going to read all the details, but this is something you can read just to get up to speed on. But these are questions from the field that we wanted to get out there and answered.
And actually, this is Christina. I'm going to cut in here. I'd like to say that we're working very closely with the State Controller's Office and their auditing, both their sort of analytical side and their auditing side on some of these tax cap questions. So you would expect that your auditors would have access to the same information, which I hope will make it easier for you to go through an audit process.
Yes, and this is Deborah. I just add to that this was a kind of a battle that we discussed a lot in 2011, 2012, is whether you could count transfers to capital as expense, because it certainly is part of sound financial management to have those reserves. But it was very clear that it could only be counted if it was expensed in that same year. Now, I would just point out that New York State ASBO has, as a technical amendment to the tax cap, we have a proposal on this to allow it to be counted even if it's not expensed in that same year. But, it's been an issue, and we're continuing to talk about it.
Okay. Thank you very much, Deborah. Now, I have a technical glitch here. I'm sorry. And Deborah and Matt, I just want to mention to you, I think I put up the wrong presentation, but everybody else has the correct one in front of them, so it's going to probably bounce around, and this is my mistake. I had 4 presentations up there, so they may look a little bit different. I don't know if I should put up the new one now or just keep on going.
Go ahead and put up the new one. It only takes a couple of seconds, right?
Okay, let me do that then quickly.
What's the difference?
That's not it. I don't know where I lost it.
All right. Can we work from the one that's there? What's the difference?
So Matt, can Greg just go to the website and show the website?
Yeah, I don't know where I lost it.
He can show.
Excuse me?
Anything that's on your screen, we will all see.
So Greg, you can just go to the website and show the website.
You talking about the ASBO website, Deborah, or are you talking about ours?
I'm talking about Management Services website, that page on the tax cap that he wanted to show. You can go to the actual live website and show it.
Can we make do with this presentation?
Yeah, I can. They have the copy of the other ones, right?
Emailed on the
Yes. Yes, we
Okay.
sent the presentation to all participants today.
All right. I think we can make do with this. Just I have your copies too. For whatever reason, I don't know where I lost this one, but I did. So I'll keep moving ahead, though. Okay. So, like I said, this particular screen, you're going to see it's a little bit different on yours. You're going to see that I have the tax cap guidance 2015 on that. Again, my point for this is to show you that we, in addition to the FAQ, we also have a tax cap guidance section. It has already been initiated back in 2012-13. Again, looking at only your sheets, we have something out there for 2014 and 2015 as well. So I'm going to go right to them, and we have a guidance piece. This came up as a result of discussions with the Office of State Comptroller and the school district. There was a question on how the tax cap is calculated regarding equipment and transportation. As a result of conversation, we explained to the State Comptroller that certain facets regarding transportation are not considered in the exclusions, and most importantly, they were assuming that districts could recalculate their own transportation aid ratios. And we explained to them that the reasons and the rationales why it wouldn't work. Again, working very closely with the State Comptroller, they understood, and we both agreed that this would be the best guidance to put out there. Again, I'm not going to go in detail with it. Take a look at it. These are the things we want to bring to your attention, that if you have any questions whatsoever, bring it to our attention. We're here not only as in a regulatory basis, but we're also here to advocate for the school districts too. So bring us your questions. This was a clear one where a school district was having a little difficulty. They explained to us. We sat down with the Comptroller's office, and we were able to come out with a very fair conclusion for all. So I think it's a good opportunity now to say, ask questions, because that's what we're here for, is to ask questions and help you out. This is the other piece of it. This is kind of what helped us to explain to the State Comptroller why they wouldn't use this equipment particular facet, because the equipment they were pointing to was on Schedule G. And if you look at the bottom where it says equipment, the first sentence says must be part of a capital project approved by the voters. Well, the equipment they were pointing out was not approved by the voters, part of your regular day-to-day equipment purchases. And also, if you see right in the middle of the page where it has all the budget codes, H522, that's the only code that should be considered in the tax cap calculation. So once they saw that, they understood, and they said, that's fine, we agree with that. This is the pieces that I'm missing. I'm really sorry about this, that I must have mixed this up with another presentation, but for the most part, we got everything here. In front of you, you have the building condition survey aid and the tax cap calculations. This also has to do with a question that came from the field. Basically, you're all now in the process of doing building condition surveys. You've got a 2-year period. I mean, this is your 5-year cycle. It's up, and many schools will be doing it in 14-15 and 15-16. And if nothing else comes out of this, what you see here is the guidance that really is for the state controllers to use if they come in for an audit on this to help them understand how the aid flows. But for your purposes in the field, what we both agreed with the state controller is basically the district should deduct the building condition survey aid from the building aid, and of course you're not going to bring the expense into play at all. So basically, in other words, pull it out. Don't do it. Don't do any calculations with that at all. And this basically explains it in detail. The state controller agreed with it, and we worked with our people here in state aid as well to review it. If you have any questions, feel free. We've talked to NASBO about this and other groups too, so they're aware of this calculation as well. So just want to bring it up to you. This is some of the new guidance that we have out there for the new year. If anything new comes out, again, look at our website, because that's where you're going to get up-to-date information on any changes that may occur regarding the tax cap. Now, the tax freeze.
You can see here we've basically we've kept up the email address that the budget division's posted for questions coming from the field. They're handling them directly on this program. They assure me that guidance on the tax freeze and what would count as a shared service will be forthcoming soon, but unfortunately we don't have any further information for you on that. I know everyone's eager to hear it, and we've communicated that to our colleagues across the street, so hopefully we'll be getting some answers for you soon, and we will post them as soon as possible.
Next.
The Smart Schools Bond Act. As you know, this is a $2 billion general authorization obligation bond passed by the voters in last November. School districts have been made aware of allocations. The allocations were based on a calculation that was based on some of the school aid numbers that you have, and those allocations have been posted on the governor's website, and I believe on ours as well, or they will be shortly. The Office of Educational Management Services will be implementing some of the process pieces of the Smart Schools Bond Act, and it's still very much in the works here, but our intent is to make it as user-friendly as possible and to do it as an electronic submission, similar to something like you might have done for the ERA program, where you had an interface through the business portal that you would sort of submit your application to, and for the application essentially is the plan that's required underneath under the Bond Act language. So we've been working with the executive and to sort of frame the program and what it will look like, and then we'll be continuing to work through some of the technical issues around developing that application and so on and so forth. We'd like to point out to you that school districts will be required to consult with the stakeholders under the law, and we will be posting guidance on what that engagement with stakeholders should look like relatively soon. I think that's going to be one of the first pieces, because and then guidance on sort of what the eligible expenses is also in the works. We know that you need that first to do some of your planning. So that is one of our office's focuses. This was in the language that you're all familiar with, but as you know, projects can include instructional space for pre-K, expansion of broadband or wireless connectivity, school safety and security technology, classroom technology projects, including technology hardware like whiteboards, servers, computers, tablets. To the extent that you're buying hardware, you do need to share that with non-public schools in your communities. Move forward to this. And then so our basic framing of this program is that the plans will be approved, and this is what's in the statute. The plans will be submitted and approved, and then once we've seen that, then the dollars will be able to start to flow. And what we're trying to do is design a product that, will be relatively simple for you to use, and then also for us to review so that there won't be a long lag time in between your submission and approval. I think that works best for everyone, and that seems to be the general focus both with us and with the executive. What that's going to mean is that developing that application is going to take us a couple of months, and I think that that'll be where the time goes. So that's, you know, at the same time that's happening, we'll be working on guidance so that you can work on your plans and move forward as quickly as possible.
Christina, I have a couple of questions about the Bond Act. So your first bullet sounds like school districts should include these expenditures in their budgets. Is that right? But if you're going to take a couple months to develop an application, is that really realistic? Can you comment on whether school districts should include these expenses in their budgets?
I think I mean, one thing I would note is that these funds carry over if they're not used in the first year. So if a school district has isn't certain which direction they want to go, there's not a rush. If they do plan to spend the money, they should allocate some funds for it.
Okay, all right. And then my second question is, I've heard a rumor that these school districts will have to spend and then get reimbursed, much as they did for many of the ARA funds. And so that means they would have to borrow for the upfront costs and then get reimbursed later. Can you confirm that or not?
You know what, I think that was some of the original conversations, and you can actually see in our language here that we refer to reimbursement. But I think that is under discussion right now, so I can't really comment on it.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, we have a question here. Is
Sure.
there a timeline to submit the Smart Schools plan? Is there a timeline to spend the allocation?
The response to the second one is no. Those funds do carry over, and we're developing a software product and sort of maintain the allocations for districts for several years. The first piece is a little bit of a harder question. I think we would ask if districts are going to be spending the money for the 15-16 school year. We would hope to have something up and running. And of course, this depends on our IT capacity and so on. I mean, there's logistical issues internally here, but we would like to have plans approved by the middle of the summer if it's possible. Because we know, I mean, and part of that so that we have time to look at them so we can get them approved so that you can make the purchases, particularly of classroom equipment, in time for the start of the new school year. So, I mean, it's more what we need to do to get the equipment in place for you in time that you can use it, as opposed to any kind of deadline in the statute, because there isn't one. Does that make sense?
Okay, we have another question.
Sure.
Excel funds were accounted for in the H fund and were outside of the budget process. It seems like you anticipate the Smart Schools money will run through the general fund in the budget process. Is that correct, or is there a chance this would go through the H fund as well?
You know, that's really still under discussion. I'm not sure that folks have thought through all the implications of those pieces. I know that when we've had discussions, we've certainly made reference to Excel, and you know, I think, you know, people are aware that that was handled a little differently than some other projects, but I don't know that final decisions have been made. I think that's a great question, though, and I think I will take that forward to people and get some comments, and we'll try to get guidance out as soon as possible on that as well, on the budgeting side of the program. To be honest, we've been really focused on the guidance for the program itself, but then obviously this office will also be posting guidance about how to budget for it and how to allocate the funds within particular funds in your school district at the same time. right now we've been trying to get IT support to make an application that's easy for you all. That's been my first mission, and I hope that's good. And then we'll try to line up some of these other responses to you as we go forward.
Okay. All right. We can always come back to questions too. When Christina was talking to you all, I had a brainstorm. Boy, that's really scary for me. I found the right presentation. So to this point, we really haven't missed anything. I'm just going to back up just a little bit. The only thing I did was there's the sheet that I was talking about before, and the only piece I kind of brushed over was this. And this has to do with the propositions that are on the bottom of the budget notice. And I just wanted to give you the actual Chapter 97 regulations or law on this that shows what you should be doing and what's considered to be put in as far as your exclusions for the different propositions. Many of you already know this, but it's always good to get a refresher. But those are the only 3 pages that I actually missed to this point, so I feel good. I feel vindicated, and I appreciate your being patient with me. So we'll move from tax.
So Greg, on that slide that shows the tax cap guidance, I just wanted to, for a new business official that maybe is just coming into this and wants to see all of, the one that has the 14 and the 15 guidance.
Yes. Let me just jump.
If you could get there.
Just give me a second. I know it's here. Oh. Just give me a second.
Go by there a second ago.
There it is.
There it is. There it is. So is it safe to say that the 15 guidance is like an addendum, and that a new business official, to get the full guidance, would have to look at the 13 guidance and the 15 guidance? Because I was looking at it, and it looks like the 13 guidance is the last full guidance.
That's absolutely 100%
right?
correct. That's correct, 100%. Yeah, 12 is your baseline, 13 an expansion of that, and 14 and 15 we just added, like you said, some addendums.
Right.
I think addendum. The things we're going to do is, in time, hopefully soon, get all these together in one piece, and that's the goal. So I think after this particular year run is done, we'll do a consolidation, so everything will be in one form for everybody.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, we have 2 more questions for you about the Smart
Sure.
Schools Act. First, if we do not include it in the 2015-2016 budget, couldn't we reappropriate the budget later with the Smart School State Aid as the anticipated revenue?
Wow.
Reappropriate the budget later?
Yeah.
I believe that is the case, that you can do that, because I know that if you get a grant, a state grant or a federal grant during the school year, the board has the authority to approve that. But, I think our state ed colleagues probably need to review that as well.
Yeah, the statutory language does refer to Section 3641 of the Education Law, so I'm not actually sure if that's authorized, but we will talk to our counsel and see what we can get.
Yeah, I think it's whether it's considered a grant and aid.
Yeah, that's the 3641. So, in a lot of times when grants are authorized in statute, there's a reference in the language to Section 3641 to say, essentially, this is one of those cases. That is not the case for Smart Schools Bond Act, although it's quite possible that was the intent. So we will have that conversation with folks.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you. And the next one is the requirement to make available classroom technology to any student of a non-public school in the district or to resident students in non-public schools not in the district. In other words, if the district does not have non-public schools in their boundary, then there is no requirement to make the technology available.
That's a guidance question too.
Yeah, that's a question we'll have to work through.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Again, keep in mind, these questions that are being given to us, they'll be Matt will be bringing to our attention too. That is the things we're going to put onto our website and get out this information to New York ASBO as well. So if we can't answer it today, we'll work on getting that information to you. And like I said, your sources would be our homepage, and New York State ASBO, I know, has been very good at getting information out very promptly. So we'll work on those questions as well.
Yes, and I would just note that both the State Aid Office and Management Services are very good about giving me a little heads up when something is important on the website, and we highlight that in our communications with business folks.
Yes. It kind of goes in line with what we're going to talk about in a minute in the budget, and I'm going to go ahead of myself. And it goes back to the tax freeze pieces, working collaboratively, working in conjunction with other entities in order to get things done. And we know that the tax freeze, we're looking at guidance regarding that as far as working collaboratively in order to save money. And here at SED and NASBO and other state agencies, it just shows that we too work in conjunction with each other because there's such a vast amount of information out there. We don't all have the answers. We work together collectively as you're doing in the field. And that's a good segue into the next section, which is the budget process. And even though you're there in the field alone working on your budget, you also have resources available to you. And what we're going to go through right now is basically some things that I'm sure most of you have already seen and have done and know about, but this is just a refresher for the budget process. And like I said, it's going to lead into a couple of other things too. So I'm not going to go word for word through every single thing in the handbook, but let's just kind of start at the top. Obviously, the budget process all evolves around the uniform system of account. And one of the things I'll point out on the next page is, participation in the budget process by both inside and outside group is key. I was a sitting business administrator since 1989. Prior to that, prior to coming here. So I understand working with inside groups and outside groups is very important because in order to get the correct information, and the key in budgeting is communication. Communication there's no doubt about it. I mean, you can put any numbers you want together and be the great mathematician, but if you can't communicate that, that's where the problem breaks down. So that's why this particular paragraph is so important. You need to communicate with groups inside and out, and by doing that, hopefully we'll have people who will buy into the whole program as stakeholders as well. These are just some topics that I thought would be important to point out to you as far as as we say, realistic assessment of the district's educational needs. That's important. The bottom line is, what are we doing in the field here? It's all about kids. It's all about how we can get money and drive money home to the kids. And these particular bullet points is things that you need to keep in mind as you're developing your budget. And first of all, is the community's receptiveness to tax increases. We know what it is out there today. It's a tough environment, but nonetheless, that's something you have to keep in mind. Enrollment projections. I mean, if you're going to go out with these increases and you have declining enrollment, you have to be able to explain that. Capacity and limitation of facilities. A lot of school districts' facilities are aging. It's costing more money. So you've got to take that into consideration. Obviously, your staff expertise is important to take into consideration, and the educational program objectives. Again, people want to know what's in it for the stakeholders, which is your taxpayers. The one thing I point out here is the middle line where it says to effectively balance needs of the students with the resources of the community. I mean, again, I guess we can't say it enough. This is the hardest part, but these are things you have to keep in mind as you're moving through the budget process itself. Again, like I said, I'm not going to go through each one in detail. This particular screen and the formatting as far as requesting, when you're building administrators and your transportation, O&M, etc., people are looking for more money for their particular units. These are the things you should be asking them for, because you are going to be on the front lines with the superintendent and the Board of Education to explain why you need all this money. So these are the things you want them to answer you, so you'll have good information to be able to go forward, or say yes or no right then and there. So like I said, these things I point out to you just to keep in mind. So now we're into fund balance, and quite honestly, we all know what the situation is out there. It's very, very difficult to do fund balance management in this day and age. There's depleting resources, and there's no question there's a lot of schools that are in fiscal stress. We're aware of that. But nonetheless, no matter what position you're in, you still need to do your fund balance analysis. And I point out to you that I think it would be a good idea if there was a way you could consider doing at least a full 3 to 5 year fund balance. Now, in the private world, which I also worked in, doing what we call fund balance, they'll call it fund equity. It's a little bit easier for the most part because you're just looking at revenues and expenses. And in this particular environment, well, the expenses you can probably hone in pretty well, with the contract negotiations, your contracts with different contractual obligations, etc. I know that the revenue side is a little bit more difficult because of state aid pieces and whatnot. But still in all, you should probably make a good effort to try to do this. I know it was very difficult for me. Did it always work out perfect? No. But at least gave me a ballpark of where I was and where I'm headed to. Talking about fund balance right in the middle of the page, recommendation of fund balance projection should be started at least in February. I know people started back in October. Some people run it all year long. But at the very least, you should be starting in February, and you should be revising that each month right until the budget's adoption. So that's just these are just recommendations. This is not saying that you have to do that, and hopefully it helps a little bit. The next part is just the authorization as the final pieces of the budget process itself. We mentioned here, and I think we all know that you've heard, that you want to make sure that you have an easy or a plain language budget. Right in here it simply says, and it goes back to what I said, communication. Make it as easy as possible. One of the biggest things that I found while I sat in the field, and I know you all do too, is having to ask a million questions. And that's okay. Questions are good. But if you can cut them down by making things easy, most of those questions probably are already there, answered. It's just that it's not easily understood. So I think this would be a pretty good idea too. There are timelines out there already developed for you. Not only here, but in other organizations have that available to you. So use those timelines, and again, work with your fellow business officials and superintendents and other treasurers, and you might be able to find something somebody else is doing that's making it a little bit easier for you. Again, we will finish off with come close to finishing off with the budget process. The educational plan, it goes back. Everything I say here has to do, again, with communication, getting any information out to the public, explaining to them what's going on, what's the philosophy of the school district, what direction are you going. So this is very, very important, these pieces to keep in mind. I guess if you tie it all together, it keeps going back to what I had said, the communication piece. So I'm going to go through the next couple of pages and monitoring the budget itself. See, I'm just going to go back one. Yeah, budget defeats. Well, I'm hoping for the best, but again, you need to be aware for budget defeats what you need to monitor in that as well. Okay, so the actual monitoring of the budget, I think if you go to close to the bottom, it says at least once a month. I think you're all aware of this, but it's very important for you to keep a very strong handle on the budget status report. I know I looked at that weekly. There were some times I was looking at it daily as I was moving along later in the season. But keep in mind, the budget status report is something you prepare for the Board of Education, but it's also your tool that you use. And it gives you an opportunity to see what your estimated revenues are and what you've actually received. Same with the expenditures. I always used a particular number in my head. December 31st, I always looked at my budget, and I always said, okay, what percentage of the budget was spent? Sounds kind of goofy, but I'm a person that's based on estimates. I've always worked very well with that. And then I basically took that information and looked at the actual numbers. And if If they work pretty closely, and I said, okay, we're doing well. So however it is that works for you, but most importantly, these budget status reports are extremely important because you want to see your encumbrances and unencumbered balances as you move forward, because you don't want to get surprised at the end. So monitoring your budget, very, very important. Budget transfers, you're aware of those. Let's face it, when you build a budget at the beginning of the year, nothing is ever perfect. So there are times when you're going to actually need to have to move money from one to the other. Just be aware that there are certain statutes that allows you to move these. These are things that should be also in your board policy manuals, given authorities to individuals who can actually move the budget numbers around. Again, read these things on the budget transfers. I think most of you are pretty well familiar with that, but I just want to give you some information on this. Now, I thought it'd be good to talk a little bit about capital reserve funds. Again, I'll go back to what I said when I talked about fund balance. Fully aware that there are depleting opportunities to put money away because school districts just don't have the availability anymore. But if you do, and the opportunities arise, and again, this goes back to communication with the public. If you know you're going to have to get a building, do some work on a building project, there's nothing better than trying to get the information out, getting the backing of your constituents, and then you can set up a capital reserve. Basically, if you can do that, then you can put some money away if you have the money available. A repair reserve is something I used a lot in the school districts. One of the reasons why I used that is because it was money that was left over at the end of the year, and we knew that we had particular items that we had to react to. And when we put it out there, we explained to the taxpayers, we're putting this money away in order to do X, Y, and Z. And they liked that because they knew their building was going to be kept up. That's the big thing, is maintenance of the buildings sometimes prevents having to go out to a big, big building project. So, again, I just want to go, like I said, a skating tour of the different reserve funds. This gives you a lot of information in there. I would suggest you going to the actual sections, like workers' comp is covered by General Municipal Law, Section 6J. That will give you in detail. This gives you just a synopsis. It tells you what you need to open up the reserve, how to use the reserve, etc. So I'm going to just kind of cruise through these ones. You can look at them at your leisure, but these are for you to be aware of the different reserve questions. Now, I went too far. So there's two things I want to talk about before we get to any more questions. When I go back to the reserve account, I just had to do a little bit of a review on those particular reserve accounts, and basically within those sections of law, if you will, they will answer the question is, can a fund be dissolved and moved to another fund, or can it be moved to the general fund? I would say take a look in those particular citings that I mentioned there, and they will explain to you when and if you can dissolve them to move the money to a particular area. That would be important for you to know, especially if you're trying to balance things and you're looking for some extra money. If you need more information on that, I can get some information to you. All you need to do is contact me in the beginning of the page. In the presentation, you saw phone numbers and email addresses. Please feel free to use them. We're here to help you as much as we can. So before we get to the questions, the last thing on the agenda was how to avoid mistakes. And I want to, like I said, give a shout out to a couple of school districts who were very, very helpful. All the school districts have been very helpful, but like I said, we're here to help you. And I got a lot of good input from different business officials to add to the ones that I have collected over the years of being in the field. And if you would, I'd like to just recite a couple of things to you, and I'm just going to go somewhat slow. These are the things that we all agreed on that you may want to consider to try to keep, to avoid errors as you move forward, especially in the budget development process. And the first thing I would say that's key to everything else, okay, I said key to you before was communication. No question. You have to be able to communicate to people. But once you get past that, don't work in a vacuum. That's one thing I've learned over the years. There's a lot of resources out there. There's your local ASBO groups. There's the state ASBO groups. You have different groupings like state aid planning. You have a lot. And of course, you have state education department. You have us all here for you. And most importantly, you have your neighbors right sitting next to you, other school districts. Talk to them. Don't work in a vacuum. I'm not going to get into any details, but I've seen a lot of people who did work in vacuums, and it usually doesn't work out well. So keep that in mind. Keep a good budget calendar at hand and a monthly planning guide. They're available out there for you. I know way back when I used my monthly planning guide, when I was back in 1989 when I started in the business, I developed a little bit of a monthly thing to do, and that monthly thing to do built and built and built. So it's something that helps you keep connected with things you should be doing. Some other things I would suggest, accept that mistakes will happen and find out how to correct them. Everything you do in life is a learning experience, and basically don't hide mistakes from your supervisor. If it is a problem, my recommendation is get it figured out, go to your supervisor, and they may assist you with a resolution or solution to your issues as well. Obviously everything that we do in the work in this particular business, we all went to school. As we all know, you can get only so much out of a textbook, but a lot of it comes down to common sense. Is your final projection what you initially anticipated would be? That's common sense. Ask your staff for assistance. A second set of eyes can easily spot mistakes, and not only your staff, but again, it goes to outside. Like I said, talking to other people. Maintain a list of work tasks. Goes back to what I had said before. Your monthly planning calendar. You may have forgotten something, but if you keep a document right by your desk, by my elbow, every day was a monthly planning broken down by day. I think your odds of missing something become a little bit less if you have that in front of you. Remember to always cross-check numbers to your other documents. You're dealing with a lot of, whatever financial system you're using, you have a lot of data available to you. Make sure you continue to cross-check your numbers. And like I said, working in conjunction, treasurer to business official to treasurer, purchasing agent, whoever it is in your office, just keep cross-checking. When you create new budget numbers, that happens during the course of the year, you want to compare the current year's budget, to make sure it's reasonable. You also want to look, for instance, when a budget line is missing in the projections. When you build up new budgets, budget lines sometimes are no longer in use one year, they are forgotten, then they come to play and they're missing. You want to really make sure that everything's in place there. Again, it goes back to what we said before in the budget process, reviewing current year budget and revenue status reports for variances. Those variances may be clues that something's not going right or something is okay. We don't always want to look at the negative. We want to look at it as the positive. It goes back to what I said, December 31st. If my numbers that I had over 20 years come out in the same number, and they always did, fortunately, then you're doing the right thing. So I don't want to make it just seem like doing these things is to make it find bad things. It's to make sure things are going well, too.
Greg, we're just about out of time. Do you have any concluding comments you want to make?
I would say what I started off with. Don't work in a vacuum. Ask for help when you need help, and refer back to us. We're always here to help you out anytime you want. Call us, email us. We're here to help.
Okay, and I really thank you for all that valuable advice. And on the question of not working in a vacuum, I wanted to point out that New York State ASBO has a new online Business Connect program that we've launched where people in similar job titles can talk to each other and get tips and advice and have questions answered. And I think that is part of connecting with your peers. Christina, did you have anything to say before we finish?
I wanted to thank everybody for listening and promise that we will be coming out very shortly with guidance on the Smart Schools piece, and we will communicate that to you as soon as we can.
Yes, and I want to thank you both for a very, very informative session today, very helpful and very timely. And thank you, everyone, for participating in this SED webinar series.